Hello, everyone. This is William Del Pilar, and welcome to another episode of Points on the Board, where we dive headfirst into the wild world of sports and politics. Because who doesn't love a good train wreck? In this episode, we'll be tackling some juicy topics, starting with Harrison Butker, aptly titled Kicking Controversy to the Curb. It looks like Harrison Butker's bank account is soaring higher than his field goals. Despite ruffling some feathers with his spicy speech, the Chiefs decided his golden foot was worth its weight, well, in gold. Who knew traditional values could be so profitable? And speaking of spicy takes, let's talk about Mina's missteps. Oh, Mina Kimes, the self appointed arbiter of wokeness, strikes again. As a proud Latino, with a splash of Asian, I'm thrilled to see her bigotry finally called out. Apparently, her diverse views don't extend to those who disagree with her leftist playbook. Shocking, I know. Now let's pivot from one controversial figure to another. Tua's triumph, Flores' flop. Well. How the tables have turned. Tua Tung. How the hell do I say his name? Tung Ovailoa. There we go, people. He just inked a whopping $212.4 million extension with the Dolphins, while his former coach, Brian Flores, is busy not being a head coach. Tua threw some serious shade at Flores, contrasting his toxic coaching style with the positive reinforcement he now receives from Mike McDaniel. After all, if you wake up every day hearing you suck at your job, it's no wonder Tua suck. Because who wants to start their day with a motivational speech from a broken record? It looks like Tua's getting the last laugh with a fat paycheck, while Flores is just the hired help on the sidelines. Who's the leader now, Brian? Hello, everybody. Once again, this is William Del Pilar, and I'm here with my co host, Jimmy. It's Jimmy or Jim? Do you go by?
Everybody calls me Jimmy, so that's all good there. Jimmy is good.
There you go. So, Jimmy McPhee, you know what? I should probably put my headset on, or else Big John, our producer, is going to have a cow. But, Jimmy, welcome to the show. It's
Thank you
great
so
to
much for
have you
having me.
on.
Absolutely.
To the audience out there, before we go off anywhere, you can find this podcast along with others, our politics and Jimmy's show, The Blindside Blitz, which is just pure football at grumblingsmedia.com, as well as our social media outlets such as Rumble, YouTube, Apple, Pandora, Spotify. So first of all, Jimmy, how are you doing? Joe's your cohort. He couldn't make it here.
That's right.
Turns out I just found out Joe is an owner of flag football teams. So how
Yes,
you been doing?
that's right. I've been very well. I mean, just very busy though too. Life really, gets hectic sometimes. It's a busy time. School's going to be starting for the children. Football season's starting, obviously, in just about 9 days or so. So it's a very busy time for me right now. But I'm
Well, I can
excited to
only
be here.
imagine. I'm glad to have you. I usually do these shows solo, so it's good to have somebody on hand. And for the
Hmm.
audience, hopefully, we'll see more of Jimmy and we'll be able to get Joe in there. But let's get right to it.
Yeah,
I
sure.
wanted to talk about Harrison Butker only
Hmm.
because, I mean, let's be honest. They tried to cancel him, and he said,
Yeah.
and he's kind of uncancelable. In fact, I'm getting better at all this. So, oh, I had it. There we go. There we go. Always like putting up my
You're a
little
little.
bubbles here from cancel culture
Mhm.
to cashing in.
Yeah.
Harrison Butker kicks down barriers to become the NFL's highest paid kicker. Now, in full honesty, I hate Harrison Butker, but I hate
Oh,
Mahomes.
really?
I hate Kelsey. I hate the Chiefs. I
Well,
hate the
just
Chiefs.
because
They're
you
just
hate the
too
Chiefs,
damn
is
good.
that it? Or
Yeah, but I'm a big Harrison Butker fan now. It's
oh,
funny
nice.
when I started my fantasy football company, I told people I don't really have a favorite team. I root for players, but since I stopped playing fantasy football, I kind of tend to root for teams, and I tend to root for the underdog a lot. And the Chiefs
Mhm.
are just so dominant. But I got to be honest, it's frustrating when you see teams like the Bills, and the Niners, what's the saying, self. they kind of shoot themselves in the foot.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
I mean, they and the Bengals too. When they were against the Rams, of course, the
Hmm.
refs helped out the Rams a lot in that Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yep.
But seeing some of these teams that I view as underdogs just not quite get over the hump. But all three of those teams I mentioned, their Super Bowl losses were in the Bills' case, the championship games. That's all on them.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
have to look in the mirror, you know. And I think that's what makes the Chiefs so great, so dominant. Is uh, Andy Reid had so many years of not getting to the Super Bowl, and what's a bummer about that, in my opinion, is it would have been coaching excellence because he did not have a superstar. Donovan McNabb was never a quarterback, a superstar of a quarterback. He was just a solid to out. He was an outstanding quarterback at times,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I think it's sad that it took Mahomes to get him the Super Bowl because he was so close to being seen as one of the all-time great coaches. I don't view him as one of the all-time great coaches because it took Mahomes to get him there, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's not a knock on Andy
Yeah.
Reid as much as you know. Bill Belichick had Tom Brady. John Madden is somebody who I view as the consummate coach because I don't know if you're old enough to remember the
Yep.
Raiders.
Yep.
I hated the Raiders too because I was a Steelers fan. And for the
Yep.
record, people, if if Terry Bradshaw, Rocky Blyer, and Franco Harris had not all been injured and missed that championship game, we don't know who John Madden is today. Period. End of story. Truth to that. For people out there wondering, huh, what's
It
he
does
talking
make a
about?
difference.
Yeah, I mean, those are the three studs, and the Steelers did not have them for the AFC Championship game, and
Hmm.
even then, they gave the Raiders a harder game than the Vikings did, who got shellacked at that Super Bowl. But
Hmm.
anyway, I'm really digressing here. I'm going back to old school.
Yeah, well, I hear you. Hey, but football, like I said, you got the passion, you're feeling it. The Kansas City Chiefs, they have a lot of stars on there, you know, and you got to kind of point towards that, right? You know, Andy Reid, yes, he's been a coach for a very long time. He has football in his blood. I think back when he was a kid, I remember, I think they saw I can't remember what television channel it was, but they had showed old coverage of the punt, pass, and kicker competition when he was a kid. This kid is Andy Reid, young Andy Reid is towering over these other children and these magnificent things and everything. And that's how long he's been into it and been doing it. So, I mean, the thing about him being maybe riding behind Patrick Mahomes, I can see that to an extent, but you know what? Those are the guys that drafted Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? And then also he studies the game. You know what I mean? He is a um you know, student of the game. He looks at many different videos of all around, has different ideas, and it goes about it a different way too. There's so many times he goes into the locker room and talks to the players themselves and say, "Hey, I figured out this play. What do you guys think about this? Or if you guys have ideas about different routes, run them by me, and then we'll figure it out." So he's a different type of coach. He's a player's coach. I think you should kind of give him credit for for the success that he has. But
Oh, I do. I do. I
but
give him a
yeah,
lot of credit.
okay.
It's just I look at the Tom Landrys, the Chuck Nose, the
Yeah,
ones who didn't have the stud players.
right.
Bill Walsh created today's quarterback with
Mhm.
his schemes that Andy Reid uses. So I don't take anything
Yeah, no, I
away
get it.
from him. I just
Mhm.
find it a little sad because he was on the cusp of being seen as one of the greatest head coaches with his previous Super Bowl losses. And I'm glad he finally won one because he is
Yeah.
a great coach. And
Yes.
he is a player's coach, but he's a disciplinarian first.
Oh, yeah.
He's mellowed out in his old age. But let's get to the man at
Yes.
hand
Yeah,
here,
let's go to yes,
Harrison
go to
Butker.
Butker. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Butker because we're in a tribalistic country right now. It's becoming a tribalistic world, and I'm a former Catholic.
Mhm.
Most Latinos, we grew up Catholic. I went to catechism and all that. I don't think I was became a full Catholic going through the process before my mom. We she just didn't care for the Catholic Church, but I
Mhm.
don't like the fact how Christianity it's the one religion you can crap on, you know, but you can't say anything about any other religion. And my
Yeah,
take is equality, meaning
right.
you crap on. You don't see anybody ever say anything negative about the Muslims because they're scared. So we
Yeah.
can crap on the Christians, you know,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what happened to Harrison Butker. He was
Yep.
giving a speech at a Catholic university with
Mhm.
Catholic beliefs, and they all crapped on him. And I don't have it in my notes here that I sent
Right.
you. And for the
Yep.
audience, I take detailed notes, but let's tackle the hypocrisy of Trey Wingo going after Harrison Butker with a tweet. And what was your take on that? In fact, let me go find that tweet because
Yeah,
that's
find
just
that tweet.
kind of
I
dangerous.
didn't see what Trey Wingo said. I know there's been many other people out there that have said things, including was Serena Williams, things like that. And it was funny that what the thing that always kind of bothers me, and you know, Joe and I talk about this all the time with mass media and the things that they do and the mistakes that they do, and asking the question to a lot of different people that don't really even matter. They go and ask her, you know, what do you think about the quote that he had or something like that? They might not even seen that quote, but they're gonna have to feel like they seeing that they're in front of a camera, have to give some kind of reaction. So when they just even read a line off of maybe something that he had said, oh, they're like, oh wow, oh I didn't, oh yeah, that's wrong, you know, and that's what they're kind of looking for. They're looking for that reaction real quick. But I like how Harrison Butker kind of put her back in her place and said, okay, I basically said the thing that you actually just retired from tennis to go do because you want to spend time more with your family and do the mother thing. Huh. Okay. You know, and I thought that was great how he kind of just dropped the mic moment right back on her.
I love the Serena Williams. I do overall. But people forget her father was quite the racist.
Mm-hmm.
Every time things went south for them or there was a little negative press, it was about racism, racism, racism. So I'm not knocking Serena, but
Mm-hmm.
I take it with a grain of salt. She'd rather be liked than to come out and with a tough position. Why? She's got $10 zillion endorsement deal still. She's got to promote. She's got to promote her brand. So
Right.
life's not fair. So I'll give her a slight pass, but she's wrong, and I'll call that out. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I have no love for her father. Her father was quite a racist. And this is what Trey Wingo said: the Harrison
Yeah, sure.
Butker extension, making him the highest paid kicker, underscores the inherent truth of the NFL. The better you are at the job, the more a team is willing to put up with, pure and simple. Here's my problem with what he said. What he said is true, but Butker was talking to a Catholic university
Mm-hmm.
based off their religious values. So Trey
Right.
Wingo's dumbass, his
Yeah.
white bread, as Latinos and blacks like to say, privilege is coming through. And I'm being
Yes.
sarcastic. I don't believe
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
privilege with
Yeah.
anybody. But using the left standards, that's what I'm witnessing here is white privilege attacking somebody here. And
Yeah.
it just bugs me
And
because he wouldn't have done it with anybody else.
right. I mean, there's been plenty of other players that have done a lot worse in, you know, off the field or whatever, and said some other things, outlandish things. And if they had gotten, you know, a big deal, they're like, well, you put up with some of the stuff they say because you know how great the player is, stuff like that. I don't think it really pertains to the Harrison Butker thing at all. Like, what did he say wrong? I mean, he
Exactly.
basically he said the truth because, like you said, you got to know the crowd that you're talking to. So when he prepared this speech, who knew? He knew his crowd. He knew what he believed. And if you see the instance and when he said it, he's talking so passionately about his wife with tears in his eyes. You know that he was talking from pure emotion. It was nothing to do to slander women and things like that. Uh, and as far as you know, when he's quoted for saying our own nation is led by a man who publicly proclaims that he's of Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during, you know, a pro-abortion rally. That's just fact. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's spitting facts here. I mean, and if you're trying to deny that, you know, and things like that, I mean, then you're just not paying attention.
And I tell you, this is one of his shorter beards, boy. When he's got
Yeah,
that
I
full
know.
on beard, I mean, it's like a lumberjack. To me, he is the men amongst boys when it comes to place kickers.
Yeah.
So for the audience out there, he signed a 4-year, $25.6 million
Mhm.
contract extension with the Kansas City Chiefs this
Yep.
past August. In fact, just a few weeks ago. Total guaranteed is 17.8 million. Now, jack that up to well, there's no jacking it up at 17.8 million. But my point is he doesn't have to share that with anybody. He negotiated that deal himself. And for the
Mhm.
audience out there, he joined the Chiefs in 2017 after being waived by the Carolina Panthers. He's got a career field goal percentage of 89.1%. Now, we got to look at that in context. It's not just the field goal percentages anymore. He's pretty spot on with the extra points. What has
Yeah.
completely changed the kicker industry are extra points because they are no longer your 99.9%. Now guys are in their 80%, 85,
Yeah.
89, 90%. Now they're not
Right.
a given. So he's contributed to 3 Super Bowl victories, and he set a Super Bowl record with a 57-yard field goal, and he has a Super Bowl game winner. So to me, he's a very religious man, and the Chiefs saw that.
Mhm.
Now he gave the commencement speech at Benedictine College on May
Yep.
11th, so a few months
Mhm.
ago. And you're absolutely right, Jimmy.
Mhm.
He emphasized staying true to Catholic doctrine. When you look
Mhm.
at somebody like Butker and you see how he's so strong with his faith, and then you look at the rest of the NFL, what do you think when you see Butker with a faith that strong?
It's he believes in what he says. He says what he really lives. He lives and breathes it every single day. And like I said, when he's giving that speech, you see that he's has his wife in mind and everything that she is doing to help him do what he's doing, because it takes a lot of strength to handle the family and do all the other stuff while he's away playing football. I mean, people say it again, it's a man getting paid to play a boys sport or things like that. But what she's doing and helping out the family and doing those other things allows him to be able to go and do this and provide for the family in this way as well. And he's like a role model. I mean, this is if
Right.
you talk about somebody that should be looked upon as protecting the name of the shield, like they throw out there, this guy, said something detrimental to the shield. This is Harrison Butker, the opposite. And I thought it was ridiculous that he got backlash from so many people about this, and then even the NFL kind of joining into it as well. Like, well, we don't condone things like this and blah blah blah. It's like,
Well,
for
well,
what?
that's
For saying that he loved his wife and he appreciates everything that she does, and
and,
that
and he's
women, you know,
and he's devoutly religious. But here's
yes,
what people don't understand, and I want your take on this. He also
sure,
attacked the church, rightfully so. One
yes,
of the issues I had with
yes,
COVID was when I called my doctor. I'm in my 50s, people, maybe TMI here, but it's that time for the finger in the camera part of my life.
hmm,
The doc didn't want to see me. He wanted to charge me though by doing a Zoom. I'm like, Doc, how are you going to take my prostate through a Zoom call? How's this going to happen? And I got angry at him. And I like this guy. We talk sports. We got along.
yeah,
He was what I call a boat person. My mom used to help the boat people when they came over from Vietnam, traverse the seas. That's what his whole background. But he wanted to charge me for a Zoom call, and I'm like, you took an oath. You took a damn oath. And here you are not wanting to see patients. But I view priests the same way. My mother-in-law died, and my wife to this day believes she died partially of loneliness. She went quick at the retirement home. We had the retirement home pretty much waived the rule of not being able to see her because they saw she's dying. Let's get the daughter in here. And he attacked these priests who would not go out and give last rites. And people don't understand at its most powerful time, which wasn't the best time for the Catholic Church and the Vatican because they were too
hmm,
involved with governments. But those priests, that Black Plague going out there, they were still giving last rites because they knew people didn't want to die alone. They
yeah,
knew that they had to do their job with the final rites. And he attacked those who did not do that. And I thought,
hmm.
not only is he being faithful to the family, he's also holding the Catholic those bishops' feet to the fire. What are your thoughts on that? Right move, or do you think he should have just stayed
Um,
away from that?
like you said, he's speaking truths again, honesty, and I think the same thing. I was brought up Lutheran, and in my travels or just going through life, I've been a student of history, so I've learned a lot of different things of different the Romans and the Greeks and things like that, and all through different mythologies and things like that. And the church was going to be the ruling body for a while, but then there was um, you know, uh, corruption within the church and things like that and stuff. So I started to see the church in a different view, and it was very skewed and stuff. But then since meeting my wife too, she is a traditional Roman Catholic, so she's not even part of the bigger Catholic church that we see with the Pope and everything and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's a smaller one, and it's from the Society of St. Pius the Tenth, and St. Pius the Tenth, right there. He was one of the guys that was a traditional. He was saying this is the rules that Jesus Christ has set upon us and Peter to run the church. This is what we stay by. And this is what Harrison Butker's talking about, is when you see the Catholic Church, and you see it a lot of times with whether it be things going on in Africa with the AIDS situation or what, they seems like, hey, we need to kind of change or bend the rules a little bit just to stay kind of relevant now, because some people are steering away from the church. So they're trying to do whatever they can to try and I don't know if it's trying to be relevant or whatever, but when you start bending the rules like that, I look at that as upon like, I'm starting to not, believe you or whatnot. And I'm kind of like not buying what you're selling here. Cause if you tell me one thing is this, you're trying to tell me this, but then all of a sudden you can change your mind about it whenever, and it doesn't matter as much, then why should I think about it and think that it matters? You know what I mean? And that's
Oh
always
yeah.
been the thing that I've kind of questioned. And when I found this faith here with the Society of St. Pius X, it renewed things in me, and it was something that people actually, believed in, and they were showing me things that were, hey, this is this because of this, and I was like, okay, and this is why it's true. And I dove into that and found deeper knowledge in that, and now I'm geared towards that, and I think Harrison Butker believes the same way. I mean,
Right.
with what, like I said, the Catholic Church bending a lot of different things, like you said, when it all matters, when our church was going on during COVID, they fought it. They went right to New York State, things like that, signed a petition, blah, 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 had a lawsuit going to be able to hold church. Because again, we were being held back from being able to go to church. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we feel that it's beyond bounds of state and things like that.
I tell people, I go, the pivotal moment in American history was the 60s. Most charities were run by the church. In the 20s, they took the church out of the public schools when the government took control of the public schools. And it's been downhill ever since. And I'm not talking about
Mhm.
a belief system. I'm talking about the scores, the math, the science. It's just we're at the but we've dropped from being leaders of the world to being pretty much having to import help in the technological sections with doctors, with IT, because our kids just aren't smart enough. Oh, actually, I take that back. It's not that they're not smart enough; they're being indoctrinated and not taught. And people don't realize. So that was the 20s, and look where it's at today. But in the 60s, most charities were church based, and they purposely created all these regulations, all these new laws to cut the knees out from these charities that were run by the churches. So in essence, we're the government. We can handle that. And it's gone downhill. And I always tell people, do not confuse God and the church, because the church is run by men and women now,
Mhm.
depending what church you are. And
Yes.
it's like we have this guy named Scott Wiener. He's pretty much, my words, not Jimmy's. I believe he's one step shy of a pedophile, and we just haven't found out the fact that he's a pedophile, because every
Right.
action he takes is to protect pedophiles in court. Now, I'm not saying he's a
Mhm.
pedophile. I just personally believe. I wouldn't be shocked if he is, and I expect that one day to come out. But
Mhm.
he keeps harping at times when you hear the news about, oh, look at the Catholic Church, they got another child molester, and I'm like, no, 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 that's not
Mhm.
the church. That's
Yes.
a pedophile who knows he can hide in the church. I go, that's
Right.
your people, Scott, not mine. And my belief is God will judge us. I have gay relatives, gay friends. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't care, but I don't need to see it on the street and you influencing children with it. And
Right.
I'm no different with TMI, with PDA, with heterosexuals. I don't need to see
Mhm.
y'all slobbering on the street, taking it in the
Right.
bedroom,
Exactly.
And
Yes.
now he was also attacked for stating, and they lied. The media lied about it. The critics lied about it. The bigots lied about it. The racists, the progressive, the whole left lied about it. He was talking about he's never about the greatest joy of a woman is
Mhm.
being a mother. And I
Yes.
am 57 years old. I know I look good, but I'm 57.
Oh,
my
yeah, you're looking
my
great.
my issue with people who criticize him is I've never met, including the most ardent feminists, some feminazis I know. I have never met, even including them. I've never heard one of them say, my greatest joy in life is my job, not my 5 kids or not my 2 kids, our 3 kids. Every woman, whether they're a feminazi or you're traditional, they want to be a housewife. My greatest joy are my kids. And that's what he was
Mhm.
referring to.
Mhm.
And he was
Yes.
attacked for that. So this guy, he stood his ground, and he's
Yes.
still standing his ground. So before we move on, I mean, there's
Sure.
maybe one or two more comments as I look at my notes. Oh yeah, I want to talk about
Okay.
masculinity before. But what's your thoughts on him talking about women, their greatest joy being having children, and how the mainstream media, the leftists, the progressives, the Mina Kimes of the world,
Yes.
the Trey bigot wingos of the world went and
Yeah.
attacked him.
Oh, it's how they get defensive. You know what I mean? Because they hear the word vocation and they're like, wait, this guy's saying that my job is to be a stay-at-home mom and I can't achieve a diploma to go do this and work and be in the workforce and do what a man does. And like I said, he said nothing like that, but that's how they take it. You know what I mean? Or that's how they want to project it. And like you said about the Catholic religion or even and things like that, they instantly want to go back to that because it's easy. One thing about the Catholic Church, stuff like that, it's so pronounced around here, or even Christianity. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, besides being a Muslim religion there. So it's going to be attacked. It's going to, people are trying to poke holes in it and things like that. Because when you talk about you know um having having the right to religion and without religion, this is what they people kind of look at, like, oh, I can be religious, but keep me from your religion at the same time. Don't try and push your beliefs on me. You know what I mean? That's how they kind of see it. So I'm all for it, what he's saying. And that's all he did. He'd said that, listen, what brings her probably the most joy, and I see it in you women as well, will be to take care of the children, raise them, be married. And that's how those Catholic women go to that college most likely were raised. And like
Right,
you said, also, you go to any woman that's a mother or just things like that has children, if you go and ask her, like you said, my greatest joy is my job. No, I don't think so. And he said
right.
nothing of the fact that you can't go and get this, you can't go to get the diploma, you can't go to get this job, you can't do this as much as I can. None of that, but that's how they take it and how they're going to promote it.
So for all the feminists out there, let me give you a little lesson in feminism. I'm old enough to remember when feminism was sprouting its wings. I was still a child, but in the 70s, I got a big dose of it with 3 sisters, a mother and an aunt raising me because my dad was fighting in Vietnam. But feminism was about choice, women having the right to make a choice. Now, feminazis
Yes.
say feminism is about having a job. And if you don't want a job or you don't sit there and fight for that job, you're not a feminist. And any woman who wants to be a mother is not a feminist. So they moved the goalposts and they just flat out have destroyed what feminism was. And that's for a woman to make a choice of what she wants to do with her life. And, I've never heard a woman sit there say, she values her job more than her kids. I view that from the male perspective on his deathbed and go, I wish I had done more with my job. No, it's like, I wish I
No,
had
no,
spent
no.
more time with my family,
Exactly. Yes.
is what they talk about. Now, the last topic regarding Butker before we move on is
Mhm.
masculinity. Now, in the 50s, in the 60s, the white male masculinity was being estrogenized, as I like to say.
Mhm.
Then they moved on to the black man. The black man's in the process. Then they introduced Latin X into our my patriarchal Latin culture. They are trying to feminize males, and for black Americans, when the government told you women, you don't need that man, we the government will take care of you, and the welfare system shot up through the roof, and the male figure was no longer there, and the crime rate, the education rate, everything negative that all of a sudden began to get tied to black Americans in the culture, that was the government's doing, that was leftist doing, that was Democrat
Mhm.
Party doing by saying, we are your father. That and having a Planned Parenthood at every street corner in every black neighborhood did not help.
Yeah.
So they emasculated the white man. Now they're wrapping up the process of the black man, in my opinion. Now they're going to try to move on to us Latinos. So for
Hmm.
him to come out and be unapologetic in masculinity, I think that message needs to begin being heard and being shouted at, because it's not just it's white men, black men, Latin men. It's all men.
Hmm.
And you see it in our
Hmm.
television.
Yeah.
You can't the straight male being a father figure is being replaced by two moms on TV, the two
Yeah.
gay couples on TV, and I have nothing against that, but we
Yeah.
are a predominantly Christian society. And we need to sit there and start showcasing those values again. Because a lesson in life, if it wasn't for God and spirituality, I'd probably be in jail. Man, I was a little emotional
Mhm.
kid. I got picked on and got bullied. I went home and got a knife. I was trying to stab these mother MFers,
Wow.
but it was my
Yeah.
mom and God that set me straight. I am spiritual. I've had my issues with the church. I grew up in a fundamentalist family, so I've had my issues, but I am a spiritual person. And I think
Mhm.
we have lost our way spirituality wise. We are at the steps of Sodom and Gomorrah right now.
Mhm.
And how
Mhm.
we go as a country in the next 10 to 15 years will dictate humanity's future. Why do I say that? Because we live in a freaking nuclear age. And whether
Yeah.
we like it or not, the proliferation of dirty bombs is becoming easier and easier as bad countries don't care what America does anymore. There was a time, Jimmy, you may not remember,
Mhm.
but bad actors would wake up. Well, what's America going to do if we do this? And
Mhm.
once that goes away, it's going to become bloody worse. What's your take on his take on masculinity?
Uh, I agree too. Again, you've seen it time and time again. You see it in what's funny how when you look at just simple advertising, right? Um, say I stay home during the day and I'm not working. You turn on the TV. What do? They put the ads on for geared towards women. What's and they show a man that completely can't do anything right. And they're like,
Yeah,
see, look at he
yeah,
messes it up. Look at this guy. He's terrible. You need to get this, because he can, and then it's like, oh, look how easy that is. So it starts even with marketing, how they've been doing it. But like you said, they're taking certain things away from our children to be able to do to make them masculine because they think it's aggressive or the way, wrong thing to do. Um, they won't like you hear the term "let boys be boys." It's because they do. They need to get that energy out. They need to do some of these other things. They need to stay busy instead of doing some of these other things indoors, keeping them on the computers, and taking away recess even from
right,
class. And like you said, in mainstream media, how they downplay some of these other more masculine guys and say, hey, look at this more sensitive person, or like you said, this one has you take him completely out of the shows and things like that. So like, hey, this person has two moms now. Let's see, look at this aspect. And I remember growing up, we did have even those sensitive guys, but then we're actually good fathers. They showed good father figures in a sense of masculinity. You look at that show, Full House, Danny Tanner,
yeah,
you know what I mean? But it has Uncle Jesse and Joey and everybody. Those are funny guys, but you know what? That show, no matter what, that always taught you a lesson in that show.
mhm,
And they was really parenting the way it should be, you parent them. And a way that probably people would agree with even right now, how you sit them down, you talk about it, show them what they did wrong, punish them though, and
right,
and show them this is why you have that punishment. Nowadays, it
right,
seems like nobody wants to be able to punish the children. Instead, it's something else and a minor, thing, and it is a problem because, like you said, I'm like I said, I've studied history for a very long time. I love the Civil War, but I've studied World War I, World War II, things like that, and people were afraid of us to get into the war because then they knew it was done. We were going to get
right,
involved and we had the chance to do it. And like you also said, now that they know what's going on with us, we're focusing on infrastructure and other things on our military to help save the planet. Meanwhile, other, communist countries
China,
are investing more in their nuclear programs. That
yeah.
shows you enough.
Right, right. No, you're absolutely right. Before we leave this, I wanted to get a couple
Sure.
points. And being
Sure.
Latino, I have no shame in this. Having black relatives, having my grandmother call the N word. I come from a very diverse family. What bothered me was like somebody like David Dennis Jr., who got his job at his only reason he has a job at ESPN is because his father was a civil rights leader. So he got
Mhm.
his job by name association, not because he was qualified, which is what I call a DEI hire. But that's me saying that. I don't put that on
Yeah.
Jimmy. But the reason
No,
I
it's
got
all good.
mad is they said that he said that Butker was keeping his job because he's white. No, brother.
No,
Butker was
no,
keeping his job because he kicked the game winner in the Super Bowl,
he's good.
89% field goal percentage,
Yes,
longest field goal in Super Bowl. He's good at what he freaking does, you know. And
yes,
now, and in his defense, uh, his own team did come to his defense, not as tough as I would like to have seen, but they didn't
yes.
sit there and throw him under the bus. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, even Whoopi Goldberg said the importance of upholding free speech. Bill
Yeah.
Maher, that doesn't surprise me. Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond fame.
Mhm.
Tommy Lauren, Lou Holt, Say Steele, Sam Ponder, who has since gotten fired by ESPN for, in my opinion, not saying the right things politically. We're going to get into that with a different
Mhm.
person. But
Mhm.
so he has his supporters out there. We are starting to see a change happening across the country where people are finally pushing back. And in summary, look, his
Yes.
journey illustrates the complexities of being a public figure in sports in today's world, where his professional achievements are now being overshadowed by a 20-minute speech he gave. But God bless
Yes.
him because he stuck to his guns and his beliefs and did not cave in with that fake apology. Any
Yes.
final words before we move on?
I agree with you there too as well. He didn't come out and denounce anything and say, "Oh, yeah, I was wrong. I apologize deeply." Like you see so many times, people double down, they bounce back or whatever, and say, "No, oh yeah, I was wrong. I'm gonna delete that tweet or whatever, this and that." And also, like you said here, the stats back it up. His career, he's been playing since 2017. A
Yeah.
career extra point percentage, and that's even after the rule change, 94.5%. Last year, he was
Wow.
100% on extra points. All right.
That's
And
one reason he got that big contract. Is people
yes,
do not understand the extra point has completely changed how kickers are seen because what was a given now can cost you a game because you're forced to go for a two-pointer to tie it because your field goal kicker missed the extra point. That has completely changed it. And I don't think people realize that because I don't think people who just casually follow the game don't understand it's not what a 35, 40-yard extra point or 40, something like that.
yep.
It's not chump change,
Yeah. And
know.
if you want to just investigate just a quick bit here, last year, coming off his best year, if you look at field goal range from how far it was at 50 plus, he was 5 for 5. At
Wow.
40 to 49 yards, he was 7 for 7. So he only missed 2 field goals, and that was between the 30 and the 39-yard line. He was 13 out of 15. Everything else nailed it all. Short,
You're
long.
right. And the
It's
final caveat on that I'll say is this
mhm.
is that the Chiefs are not the dominant Chiefs the last 3 years as they were 4 and 5 years ago. That kicker matters to them now, and that's why
Yeah,
he got that big fat paycheck.
that's
Yeah,
right.
and his
And
haters are hating.
And real quick, even too, you're going to see it in this upcoming season with that new rule change on the kickoffs. He's curving the football, so now guys that are back there to receive in that receiving zone, the landing zone rather, it's harder for them to kind of judge this thing, and so he's changing the game again to try and give the Chiefs another advantage. So wait and look for that this season.
Exactly, exactly. All righty. Let's move on to one of these leftists, these progressives.
Hmm.
I said I'm Latino with a splash of Asian. My mom's side of the family, we don't know them too well. I do know them, but we were closer to other family members is our Asian side. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like I have everything in my family. We have black, Latino is not really a skin color type of person as much as a cool Latinos are like
Culture.
Americans. We're
Yes.
diverse with various races within us. But I have Spaniard in me. So I need to do one of those DNA tests. I'm just a cheap bastard because I want to do the $600 one that covers both sides of the family. Your traditional ones out there, for people who don't know, only cover your mother's side. Okay. So that said,
Mm,
Mina Kimes,
yes.
ESPN's leftist darling, and the network's hypocritical playbook.
Hmm.
So real quick, so for the audience out there who may not know who she is, let me show you who she is. She's an analytics person who has never played a game,
Hmm.
and I don't think she should have a job as an analyst. She should have a job as a color commentator. The analyst,
I
I'm in
agree.
agreement with the fact that the analyst should be somebody who played the game, because that gives us the insight into the mentality and what's going through it. A color commentator, I mean, that's what she should be doing. It's
Yes.
literally, to me, the same job but different positions. And she's taking the job away from a player, more than likely a black guy. I'm
Hmm.
still waiting
Hmm.
for the Latino surge in the NFL. I think we had a kicker for the Niners some years back, but I can't
Yes.
remember. So Mina Kimes, real quick. She's
Yes.
a Yale University graduate, majored in English, started as a business journalist, I want to say with Forbes. She transitioned into sports writing. So God bless her. She saw,
Hmm.
she worked hard to get where she's at. I'm not going to deny her that. She joined in 2014, but now I also know ESPN. I know people who have worked there. A pretty girl goes a long way. No different than Fox News. A pretty girl who knows her stuff goes a lot farther than that ugly bimbo. Actually, if you're ugly, you're not seen as a bimbo. You're just seen as ugly.
Yeah.
It's sad but true.
They're
Why
the
do you
they're
hate
the
her?
radio hosts.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Sorry.
There you go. And people, that's an ugly truth, what we're just talking about. And we say it humorously, but it's sad but true. It shouldn't be the case. But the courts have also ruled that, yes, being pretty does garner you. There was a case in Puerto Rico in the 70s. The woman sued because she got fired because was too old. It's Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, went to the American courts, and the courts ruled, oh no, they had a right to fire you because looks do have a lot to do with ratings. Now they don't do that anymore because it's politically correct, but it does make a difference.
Hmm.
Now she reportedly earns over 1.7 million annually. I don't know how accurate
Oof.
that is. Probably more now. But her responsibilities, she's a regular analyst on NFL Live and other
Hmm.
high profile shows. That doesn't bother me. She
Right.
contributes. I don't think they make ESPN the magazine anymore, but
No.
she's on a podcast. She's multiple awards. Uh, Praise for her preparation and depth. And if you are in
Yes.
analytics, again, I'm not going to knock her. If you are in analytics, as I was as I was saying, Jimmy on screen, I hated fantasy football because I'm an analytics guy. So I was always in the numbers. And when you're playing in 10 zillion leagues, that's a lot of research. So give her due where her due is at. So
Hmm.
so she's opened the door for Asians too. So yada yada yada. She's done good for herself. She's done good for her culture. She's done good for women. However, the problem with her is she's a progressive idiot. Yeah, and I mean, and she's faced backlash by how she's criticized players,
Yeah.
and they've taken offense because she's never played the game. I will defend
Yes.
her on this aspect. It's hard for a male figure in a sport like football to sit there and take criticism how she gives it towards a man. So that's
Mhm.
okay. So as men, we got to get over that. But at the same time, again, she should be more of the college, not in the role as she sees as they have her. That should be more towards a male player. But I'm okay with it. I see both sides as part of it. My first issue, we're gonna get into some of
Mhm.
her issues with Outkick, but my first
Sure.
issue as a man who served, who is Latino, who grew up in the patriarch, who lived the entrepreneurial dream, the American dream, her telling me that Tim Walz is a model of masculinity that I'm jealous of. No, I'm sorry. Tim Walz is what you call a cuck. And cuck,
Yeah.
politically speaking, is a spineless man. He's
Yes.
probably a cuck in the
Yeah.
sexual sense, too. But
Mhm.
politically speaking, it's a spineless man. It's a spineless progressive. That's what Tim Walz. So I
Yes.
take offense to her lying. That's
Mhm.
a flat out lie. You look at his record, you look at what he's done. I mean, the
Mhm.
man is a coward. When it came time for
Yep.
him to ship out to go to to go to war in the Mid East, he conveniently retired. Then he
Yeah.
lied and said he was a command sergeant major.
Yep.
And I can tell you, having served, knowing that world, command sergeant majors are a rare breed. There's only a handful of them. And then there's also
Hmm.
command sergeant major of the nation. He was none of that.
Hmm.
In the military, you're given rank at times if you complete certain aspects, and they'll give you the rank ahead of time. And if you don't, boom, they pull it. Even
Yep.
after they pulled it, he retired as an EA. He was still lying. Then he lied and said he suffered from PTSD
Yeah.
because of his time in Afghanistan, which he never went. So for
Yep.
her to sit there and have the audacity, the lie, I can't say how I really feel about her because I will get in trouble with my own wife.
Hmm.
Oh, don't cross
Hmm.
that line. But that's how I feel about her. So my first question to you is, what do you think of her lying so badly for the left, which is against ESPN policy per their
Hmm.
own policies,
Yeah.
where they'll
Yeah.
fire the conservative, but they don't do squat to her? She should have been fired on the spot. Not only for that, but just for flat out lying about Tim Walz. What's your first take on Tim Walz? We know he's not really a man. In fact, and last I saw, his wife was putting the pants on and putting that
Yeah.
condom on.
Yes. Nice.
That's how much of a cuck he is. What do you think of her? I mean, to me, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, that's as low as you can go in line for your own progressive beliefs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if she's even lying. Like these people are indoctrinated so badly, and then they hate Donald Trump so much that they would just go along with it. You know what I mean? They maybe even believe this. They're trying. Their whole basis is living life off of a strange philosophy instead of facts. What is a woman? Two, X chromosomes. A man has an X to Y. It's science. It's there. It's proven. When you are dead and they bury up your bones and they test your bones, they will find out, or even with your bone structure, whether you're a man or a woman by that. It isn't how you feel. It isn't how you feel like dressing, and this is what Tim Walz stands by. This guy,
Yep.
again, I think it's ugly, the fact that they've painted him out to this dad figure and all this real dad power and a real man's man now. Get the hell out of here. He's done everything uh, that can prove the opposite. This guy has signed in Minnesota some of the toughest, most egregious abortion rulings and things like that. Bills that now they can abort right up to the moment of birth, just about. So
Well,
that's
he's
not
not a good
showing that
guy.
you got major dad power. You know what I'm saying? What in everything that he's stood for shows that he cares about being a dad or children and things like that. And in aspect of being a strong man, she tried to bring up, well, Travis Kelce and Dan Campbell as the same type of person, as him. Like, see, I think guys like this and guys like that show that you can be sensitive and this and like this. Tim Walz is over there weeping at every single speech at that DNC profusely more than any other woman in the place. And in Dan
Yeah,
Campbell, he
I don't mean to cut him, but even Travis Kelce, I don't view as a man.
yeah,
I mean, the guy's pimping the jab, which is
yeah,
not to have killed people, and then his soon to be wife, I would imagine, saying bleep the patriarchy. So we know who wears the pants in that relationship. So I don't even view Travis Kelce. Now he'll pound the hell out of me with a punch, I'm sure. So that's why but he's still not a man. He gave up
right,
his man card the moment he sat there and told people take the jab, for Pfizer paying him to tell people that. So
right.
I'm interrupted that there. Now Dan Campbell,
No,
I
I
think
hear,
he's
but
a man that epitomizes testosterone, maybe too much. Dan, you don't have to go for it every fourth down. You just
yes,
don't.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guy that plays on his emotions. And if she wants to say on that, I can see, like, all right, Dan Campbell, he'd be a great guy because, again, he believes what he says. He's driven off of emotion and he cares about people. I would say that Dan Campbell, out of all those, is a nice, example of masculinity over Tim Walz. I mean, it is
Yes.
oblivious. And once it left her mouth, I was like, this is ridiculous. But
My
I'm not surprised.
Labrador has greater masculinity than Tim Walz, and he's
Yes.
neutered. Yeah.
Yes. And I
So
think he
so real
takes
quick,
advice from his children on how to do things. How he brings that up in his speeches all the time. Well, she says to me, "What are you going to do about this, Pop?" And he's like, "Oh, you're right. I'm going to do this now. Thanks for the advice." It's like, okay.
the epitome of a cuck, a spineless person. So Kimes is always spewing leftist propaganda, leftist
Mhm.
lies, to be quite frank. Because when you break it down, uh, 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 she can't back it up. Now, she started spewing lies about Outkick. Outkick is a conservative sports site. It's mega successful. In fact, we're kind of patterned after it in many ways here
Yep.
at Grumblings Media. But that
Yep.
said, she played the victim. She attacked Outkick, then played the victim when they pushed back.
Yep.
And this is a typical tactic, especially with feminazis like Kimes. You know, they play the victim. They play the woman card. Oh, woe is me. Man, woman, my three sisters would have beat the hell out of you. You come to them with that crap. Now, Clay Travis said, show me the receipts.
Yes.
Come on, baby. Show me the receipts. I'll give you a free article here. Post an article. Show us the receipts. And of course, she showed the receipts of her fans. And as Marcellus Wiley says, you can't do that. And as Clay Travis said, look at his timeline with her fans and see the racist crap they say. You know, so she had no receipts, so she reached deep into the bag of victimology and tried to put words into Clay Travis and Outkick's mouths that were being spewed by other people. What's your thoughts on people like Mina Kimes not only lying, but lying and not being able to prove their lies when somebody outs them, says prove it, and then we'll talk about how we can change. But she wasn't able to spew the back up the lie she was spewing. What are your thoughts
Mhm.
on that? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, shouldn't there be some kind of accountability towards her lying as she does?
There should be, but there's not going to be. You know what I mean? Because again, playing the victim, it's real easy, especially with the one. Yes, she is a woman. Two, she does have Asian heritage, so it's easy when she was even
So
show.
do
She did.
I.
She did show like some kind of pictures of photos of some posts. She's like, oh, this is what I'm getting racially attacked, and somebody had posted something about chink and this and that, blah blah. Who knows where she drubbed them up? It could have been even from somebody else's timeline. I'm not even sure, but it's easy to play that whole victim because you could say, hey, there you go, this is who you as Outkick, because this is what she said too, is like, you guys are the ones that spread lies in your aggro white male website and your journalistic views of what you do. This is what you promote, and you dig these people out of here and send your guard dogs like after me. So people buy right into that. They're
But
going
yeah,
to.
and she's projecting. That's
Oh
what
yeah.
her side is doing.
Yes.
Clay Travis has had death threats. He's had racial epithets thrown his way.
Mhm.
And then, well, minorities can't be racist, really? Because the government says so. Well, the government also said you were property with the Dred Scott decision. That was
Yes.
wrong then. And the government's wrong now.
Mhm.
Racism is hate. Hate is top. Mina
Yes.
Kimes is promoting hate. She's teaching hate to her followers by playing
Yes.
victim and spewing that hate that she accuses others of not doing. And why do I say not doing? Because any white male or white female that is conservative would be raked over the coals, canceled. They would never work again in that industry if they did what the left says they do. It's not true. Mina Kimes is the epitome of hypocrisy, of double standard.
Mhm.
And as you said, she hasn't retracted her statements.
Yes.
Now I give credit to not only Clay Travis but Bobby Burak. Follow those two. Find them on Outkick. Find the great stuff, great articles. I'm a little older than both of them. It's like, so when I see them, I'm like, been there, done that. But they're more famous, so they'll be able to fight that fight. So God bless them
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
they're both Anglos and they are both have more to lose than Mina Kimes ever will. And more
Yeah.
importantly, Clay Travis is an entrepreneur who's lived the American dream.
Yeah.
Mina Kimes is cashing a check by a white guy every
Yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's always my take on that.
Yeah.
Really, you hate white people so much, but you love cashing those checks, don't you, Jamel Hill? Yeah,
Yeah, sure. I know Jamel Hill. She's another one, but she actually did get suspended from ESPN for her thing against Trump a while back. But even
she
since
went so
then,
far.
things are tougher now.
Right.
What's that?
And speaking of that, though, Jimmy, Kurt Schilling
Mhm.
has been fired. Linda Cohn was suspended. Jason Sehorn was told curtail your political aspirations. Jamel Hill
Mhm.
got taken in the mat, but that's because she went so far overboard they couldn't cover it up. But
Yeah.
but outside of that, she said 10 zillion things she got away with. Mina Kimes,
Yeah.
obviously. Tony Kornheiser, he's a white guy, but hey, he's on the leftist bandwagon. So when you spill your progressive ways, it's okay, even though their policy it's no politics, and that's the policy is what they
Mhm.
use. I had a lawyer about 10, 15 years ago said, William, I'm just shocked that some of these lawsuits aren't being filed because these companies are breaking their own employee handbook guidelines that everybody's supposed to follow and be equal. He goes, they may not be legal, but he goes, in my opinion, that would stand up in a court of law, especially in a civil court of law, So,
Mhm.
and I think some of these out of court settlements, like Sage, what's her name? Say Steele. I'm
Yeah.
like, she should have gotten some money out of it. She should have gone taken him to the bank, because I think when in the civil court, it's much different. And studies have been done. A lot of people vote for the plaintiffs and not the defendants, meaning the corporation have to pay out, is because they see themselves in that plaintiff's shoes, meaning that could be my payday one day. So I do think that's going to start coming sooner than later. But any final words on Mina Kimes before we move on to our last topic here?
Well, it's funny too, is I like you want to talk to her, talk about her as a, analyst, like you said, or even radio host. Um, I'm on the same thing. Like, and I don't, people are going to come at it at a certain way just because I am a man saying it too. They're instantly going to think it's because she's a woman. She don't know what she's talking about. But I've said this about Maurice Jones-Drew, and he's played the game. I respect him, and I know he knows a lot of other things that I don't know because he's played, and I get that. And a lot of people say, "Hey, I'm just a white guy that's never played it either." But I know that I have a strong belief in a lot of things that I see, and I want to express my view. You may not like it, you might agree, you might not. But with her, like sports writer, you see that acclaimed sports writer, analytics, all this stuff. That's what she is. Stick to that. I mean, because just that's what she does well. When it pertains
Yeah.
and goes into TV, and she gives these takes or whatever that she does, it's garbage. It's terrible. She don't know what she's talking about. And you're kind of like, really? That's your take on that? And I'm like, I just drown it out. I'm like, I can't even listen to this anymore. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And the fact that she has a career still, and still says this, I mean, it blows my mind. You know what I mean? So that's why I kind of look
Does
at
it
her,
really though? Does it really, considering it's ESPN
I
and she's a
guess because, like you
leftist?
said, you do look at it the way it is, and then also, again, she's has a little bit of appeal there for some people out there for television. But again, they've gotten rid of other people too that have a different view on the opposite
Mm-hmm.
side. Look at Ponder as well. When she was speaking out against some of these political different issues, and now she let go, and they say it's a money thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But one last thing too, even people in her own industry, let's bring up Michelle Tafoya, and again, a person that isn't a white woman. She's um, Latino, and she says right here on Twitter too. She kind of went out on Twitter and said, "I'm sincerely embarrassed for at Mina Kimes and how pathetic that her kind of masculinity means more than the candidate's record, which is
Yeah.
abysmal. Sincerely, a Minnesotan." And that's the
Well,
thing too. She's telling you.
the problem with the Mina Kimes of the world isn't Mina Kimes, woman, Asian, etc. It's a class warfare. I tell my brethren minorities, my brethren Latinos, my brethren blacks, my brethren Asians. I got a lot of brothers out there. You know, uh, 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 stop. We are tribalistic. But if you look at the rich class that are promoting all this progressivism, all this let the criminals back out, it's not in their neighborhoods. Their kids
Mhm,
don't go to the public schools that your kids are being indoctrinated. They go to private schools. I
mhm,
go, look at the whole pandemic. They weren't wearing masks. It's like you can go to a Democrat event and the Democrats weren't wearing masks, but those Latinos here in California were wearing their masks as they served
mhm,
them. It's a class issue. So Mina Kimes will never deal with that earning a few million a year. She'll be
mhm.
in her gated community with her security guard, with security at the ESPN offices. So that's my whole issue is until they had, and here's what people don't realize. San Francisco started to sit there and go, okay, we got a problem here. Why? When their high-end jewelry stores that the rich frequented started to get ransacked. When they started encroaching in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
When that one entrepreneur who created one of the pay services out there, I forget, when he got mugged and killed. All of
Hmm.
a sudden, we had a problem here. Yeah, because it's starting to encroach on your world. So that's
Yeah.
my whole issue with the Mina Kimes of the world is they spew that hate, they spew those values because they don't have to live in the world they're creating for us. We do.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
All righty. All right. Let's go to our final topic here. From Flores to flourishing, how Tua Tagovailoa went from you suck to superstar. All righty, let's. Tua is obviously having the last laugh. Got a big old fat paycheck at 212 million. I personally, I'm in agreement with Big John. Uh, the West Coast offense is built on timing. But the
Hmm.
West Coast style offense that Mike McDaniels runs is built on speed and that deep ball.
Yep.
And Big John showed me too many times where the receiver has to slow down because Tua just doesn't have the shotgun arm to get it to him in stride 40 yards deep. And I think that's a big reason why they can't beat teams over 500 who understand this, who can match up, who realize we don't have, it's not the receivers that are going to kill us. Uh, 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 because Tua's arm, we just have to keep him in check because he's not going to be able to keep that deep ball, and they're able to get to him and they're able to rattle him. So I'm not knocking Tua as much as that's my Mina Kimes and analytical take on Tua.
I think he could say it now too. Now that he's been so far removed from Brian Flores. Brian Flores was blacklisted for a very long time and just barely found his way back into coaching. And I think a lot of people would say the same thing about him in a way he takes his approach. And we hear this about a bunch of different coaches too, and how they kind of approach players. Some coaches have to approach players a different way than they approach another one. Brian Flores, whether he believed it or not, that this guy was just terrible, he sucked. Maybe it was just way just trying to toughen him up or whatnot. But I don't think so, just because the way he handled it. You saw that times when things were getting tough in the games and stuff like that, they were pulling Tua in and out of the game so many times and putting Fitzpatrick in, especially it was weird to like late in some of the games. It's like when the game was on the line, they're like, all right, you've been playing for most of the game. I'm going to take you out. We're going to throw this guy in here for this last deep ball or whatever. It was very strange. And, but he stood by it, I guess. And Mike McDaniel, you see him, he's a totally different cat. So you see the difference when you get aggressive, a tougher guy, things like this, kind of going at you. I'm going to demean you, and then maybe that'll work. Or another guy that Mike McDaniel is kind of like positive, but he's kind of joking, he's very energetic, coming at it in a different way, and said he could be lying out his friggin' ass though too, and be like, "Yo, listen, Tua, you're the greatest, man. You're great for this thing, or what we want to do here. You're the perfect match, man. Just keep what you're doing, man. And I think that little bit of a positivity really does help somebody. It could be the truth. It might not be, but that's his different approach. And I think that just is what motivated Tua.
Right, right. All right. So let's listen to obviously this got back to Brian Flores, who is now the defensive coordinator. And I think Brian Flores
Mhm.
wasn't really as much blackballed as much as his own words. I mean, he played the race card.
Yeah,
And
well,
then,
yeah, well, he
you
took it
know,
too far. Like he did a lot of things you're
yeah.
not supposed to do.
Well, it's not that you're not supposed to do. He was just playing the race card in a
Yeah,
negative fashion. And
yeah,
it took a black head coach and Mike Tomlin to give him a second chance. And I'm sure Tomlin's like, dude,
yes,
you need to chill out. You know,
yeah,
and then it took the white guy, Kevin O'Connell. And my point in saying that black, white guy, it took the brotherhood of the NFL to make him realize, maybe I need to change a little bit. Uh,
yeah.
Now, and we're going to talk about it because I come from a military background. There's good and bad, mostly good. The problem is Brian Flores was just incompetent, not only as an X's and O's head coach and
Mhm.
understanding that, but he was incompetent in understanding the players, and he was incompetent as a leader. When you tear somebody down, you tear them down for a reason, and that is
Yep.
to rebuild them in a certain way. He just tore Tua down because he didn't care for Tua. So this was his response when it got back to him. Hey, Tua just
Ooh.
crapped on you. What's your take on it?
You know, that hit me in a way that wasn't, I wouldn't say it was positive for me. But at the same time, I've got to use that and say, hey, how can I grow from that? How can I be better? And that's really where I'm at from that standpoint.
It hit him in a way that wasn't positive for him. And
Yeah.
then he goes, is that him? Is that me? He goes, that's not me. Is kind of what he said. So he wouldn't even acknowledge I screwed up. If
Yeah.
I'm a team owner and I'm looking at him, come the end of the season, I go back to that press conference and go, this guy hasn't changed.
Yeah.
He's not taking responsibility.
Right.
Yeah, he's saying the right things, but when push came to shove, it goes, yeah, I screwed up. I should have been better. And I'm gonna add to that.
Hmm.
I built one of the best fantasy sports companies in the world. My website was my partner and my website was ranked in the top 2,000. We had GMs on speed dial. We had agents on speed dial. Players loved us. We coaches knew who we were. And we had no clue. I ran that business like in a military dictatorship. And one of the greatest lessons I didn't learn, was you can't manhandle people like that. You can't tear them down. You can't be so demanding. You got to let them breathe. You got to let them grow. It's one of the most saddening things in my life when I look back at it. I don't see the success. I see, God, I freaking drove them over the hill. I was too hard, too harsh on them. So when I saw, but I always took care of them. I always rewarded them. I always thought of them. I always set them up to be in position.
Hmm.
So even
Hmm.
though I knew there were ways I could improve and I needed to improve, uh, I also took care of them. Flores just did not like Tua. And that
Yeah.
press conference, he showed no remorse. He
Yeah.
said the right things, but to me, he showed no remorse. Now, that's how I saw it. How did you see that?
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, he can't even stomach it to say anything. He's just like, I felt a certain way that made me feel something, but I don't want to get into that. And you're like, okay, well, okay. And then right directly after that, when it seems like he tries to put on his front, like he maybe has been a changed man, he goes right to, now you guys are talking about this and look how it's affecting our players here in Minnesota and what we're doing here. How dare you do something like this? And now these guys have to deal with this and they shouldn't have to do that. Look what you
And
guys
Jimmy,
did, you know?
really, are those players really having to deal with? Hey, player Rexer, what do you think of
Yeah,
what Tua said, Brian? No, they're not being asked that. They asked Flores that. It's
right.
not. See, that is one of the
He's going to
biggest
play the
lies.
victim.
Yeah, that's one
Yeah,
of the biggest lies you ever hear. What's affecting the team? 99.9% of the time. So how's it affecting you? I haven't thought about it. Hey, when are we gonna go eat? Come on down.
yeah,
I got it doesn't affect them. It's a common tactic used to deflect. So, and
yes.
I'm not crapping on Flores as much as I think this whole race card he played after getting fired, that backfired on him,
Yeah.
being humbled with his own defensive shortcomings at times, running a great defense, but not having the right players, and then making terrible in-game decisions that have cost the Vikings games. I
Hmm.
think that's what's humbled him. That's being seen as having no respect where he's at. He's trying to regain respect. So I think
Right.
his fall from grace, the actions that came with his firing and not being able to play the victim card with the support he thought he would get naturally. I think that's what's going to help change him because he's got to look in the mirror and go, man, I'm trying to play the victim, man, and nobody wants to see me as a victim, man. That's
Right.
beefed up. But the reality of it is, he's got to learn from that. Tua coming out and saying that may have been a punch to the gut, but he deserved it. Well,
Yes.
it's not like Tua was coming out of nowhere. He literally destroying the psyche of a child is one of the greatest travesties. And Tua was pretty much a child in the sense of where he was at as a rookie, where the team is supposed to take care of you, supposed to guide you. Instead, he's doing it's like a mommy dearest from the coach to him. So
Hmm.
I saw nothing wrong with what Tua said, but I will defend the disciplinarian head coaches, Bill
Yes.
Belichick, Tom Coughlin, Jimmy Johnson, Don Shula, even Bill Walsh,
Hmm.
Chuck No, Mike
Hmm.
Tomlin. These are all disciplinarians where their way comes first. And then they bond with the players. Those are all Super Bowl winners. I mean, what's that? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 19. That's 20 Super Bowls between 7 head coaches. 20 Super
Hmm.
Bowls. some of your player coaches, Marvin Lewis, who I met, who knew who I was before I even met him, and super nice guy. Rex Ryan was seen as a tough-minded head coach, but he became a player's coach. You know, Dan Reeves, outside of the Elway stuff, his players tend to love him. Jim Zorn, Petrino, Mike Patricia, Herm Edwards, a great players coach. Dave Campbell, all these guys were well liked senior players coaches. Not a Super Bowl amongst them. You know, so my belief is you got to be a disciplinarian because it's like being a parent. When a parent says, "Oh yeah, we're friends," then you're not being a good parent,
Yeah.
and that tends to bear fruit down the road. So my take is Tom or Brian Flores has given the disciplinarian head coach a bad name. I looked at some of the comments on Reddit, on X, on Facebook, and they're all, "Well, that's not how you coach." And I'm like, "You little cuck in your mama's basement," as if you really know what it is to be a man. You know,
Yeah.
20 Super Bowls among 7 head coaches. Well, 8, 9 head coaches there's beloved by their players, not a Super Bowl amongst them. So my point is you need to be a disciplinarian who shows tough love. Brian Flores was just mommy dearest. Your take on what I just said, and feel free to disagree. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm 100% right, but I think for the most part, what I say is true.
Yeah, I know, bro. Else you wouldn't say it, right? Yeah, that's why you said you'd probably be bad as a politician because again, you speak what's on your mind and the truth all the time, so it's tough. But I agree to a certain extent too, because you named all these coaches that are all about discipline, but did it kind of the right way. This guy too, it's not like he's a wimp. He came from the Nick Saban coaching tree right there,
Right.
for Alabama. Do you think Nick
Right.
Saban, was either too hard on him or, a player's coach that, I'm going to be coddling you? No, he's one of the greatest, probably the greatest college head coach of all time. So
Right.
it's not like this guy, hasn't heard things like that before. And some of that discipline is like, oh, this guy was too hard on me. I can't take that. You know what I mean? He was just honest. Like, this guy just demeaned me to death. And when you get told you're a piece of crap for so long, some people do, they start to believe it because when you start to try and do things and it then seems like it doesn't matter, then why am I even trying? Why do I bother trying
Exactly.
if it's never good enough still? And that's the thing, because that will destroy you. Like you said, you got to be able to give them something, say, hey, you're not good at this, but take this and work on this and get better. And trust me, it'll come to you, or something like that, with some inspiration behind it. Because and we talk about the military thing and stuff like that. And I think some of these old military movies like Full Metal Jacket kind of give that military discipline like a bad name, Private Pile on him all the time, blah, 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 blah. So then what he did in that movie too, you're like, see, this is the way those drill sergeants are and things like that. But still, those drill sergeants are nothing like what they're doing now. Who knows what they're saying now? I mean,
Yeah, no. They want Gomer piles today.
Yes.
And so I want to give some credit here to Warren Sharp. You can follow him at Sharp Football. And I didn't realize this. Again, I don't watch football like I used to, but he brought up some great points in terms of Tua and what he had to deal with, which I put on Brian Flores as a head coach. It's your job to hire the X's and the O's guys, the offensive and defensive coordinators.
Yep.
And a hat tip to Warren Sharp here at Sharp Football. Offensive line issues, ranked last in pass block win rate, the worst PFF grades in the league. It was considered the worst offensive line overall, ranked last in wide receiver separation, second to last in yards after catch, described as an utter catastrophe with limited skilled players. I can't remember one of the receivers. I mean, there were a bunch of no-names. It was an average team at best. Poor play calling, obviously. What you said, going in a quarterback here, a quarterback there. I'm sorry, we all love Fitzgerald. What's his name? Ryan Fitzgerald.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh, Fitzpatrick.
Fitzmagic.
Ryan Fitzmagic. The guy was streaky. He'll give you 4 touchdowns in 2-3 games, then he'll lose you the next 8 games. I mean, he was more of a loser QB than a winner, and I'm not knocking him personally on that. I'm talking about his record. He was just too inconsistent. So when you're replacing your future QB with mediocrity like that, you question everything. So he's improved in every quarterback metric since Mike McDaniel Daniels came on board. So I give credit to Warren Sharp. He kind of put it in perspective. It wasn't just how Brian Flores treated him. Brian Flores really did not build a good team around him, a good team overall. So
Yes.
again, I don't think Tua is an NFL top tier quarterback. I don't think he's going to take the Dolphins to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, but he's going to break a lot of records because he's in what I call the new version. I don't know if you remember, but the run and shoot, the gun and shoot.
Yep. Yeah, the
Uh,
run and shoot. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, Warren Moon threw up some
Warren Moon.
phenomenal stats, but once they played a real defense, a real team, boom. And the other issue with a high prolific offense is your defense is on the field too much. People don't realize one reason the Bills were never able to win that Super Bowl, that defense was mediocre, not because of the players they had on them. They were worn down. They were on the field so much. So you have to have some balance. So Tua's going to put up a lot of records with those speedsters, but I don't know if he's got the gun of an arm to be able to get him deep in stride. And I'm sorry, those are receivers that can be 40 yards, 50 yards deep, beating their defender. I'm not talking about your 20-yard deep pass. And 20 yards is a deep pass for the average guy. Steve Young used to sit there and say, well, they say you don't have a deep arm for the deep ball. He goes, I don't have to have a deep arm. All I have to do is hit Jerry Rice in stride for 20 yards, and boom, he's gone to the house. Nobody's going to catch him. And they said he was slow. You hit him in stride, that counters that. So I don't know if they've got the oomph to get to the Super Bowl as much as they're a playoff perennial team who I don't see ever winning it. But I could be wrong. And God bless Tua if he wins it. God bless him because he's had to overcome the literal destruction of his career by an abusive father figure in Brian Flores. What's your final take here before we close it out?
Right. It's about what he does now here with Mike McDaniel, and it is the offense altogether. But we have seen other quarterbacks that are not exactly, the greatest. I'd say, Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer is always the one. Like I always joke around. I'm like, I want to interview Trent Dilfer and say, hey, what's it like to always be that quarterback that everybody, compares you to as not being a great quarterback to win a Super Bowl? And then,
you know what, though? In Trent Dilfer's defense, he acknowledges that. He goes, my job was not to turn the ball over. It was to run the offense, to let the playmakers around me make the play. So he understood his role. So and to me, and on top of that, when you get Ray Lewis, who is your greatest defender, he doesn't have to say much because you're right. That's how people view him. But at the end of the day, he is that asterisk. He knew his role, and the defense loved him. Why? They had to deal with Elvis Grbac. I did a in-depth paper on Elvis Grbac and said, this is why he's going to be a failure. It's like all his numbers he put up were against losing squads with some of the most poorest defenses there in Kansas City. He built his whole career off of one season. That was it. And the Ravens defense, I don't want to say they hated him, but they did not like him at all. So when Dilfer came in there and he was a game manager, to me, Dilfer, what you said about Dilfer, that's Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman had the best offensive line. He had two playmaker receivers. He had all day average quarterback on a great offensive line with arguably one of the greatest running backs, who was also one of the greatest running backs because of the great offensive line. That offensive line to me is one of the greatest in history that made Emmitt Smith much better than he was, and obviously made Aikman, who to me was nothing but a game manager. So yeah, you're right. You can put that on there. But the problem with Tua is that offense goes through the quarterback, and that's why I have those concerns. What's your take? I mean, what's your take in terms of me? Those are game managers you're talking about, but two of the offense is supposed to go through that quarterback, and that's why I don't think. What's your take on that? Feel free to argue.
I mean, I think he has enough to get it done. I don't think that he's never going to do it. I think they do. I think they have the weapons, but the time is now. Some people think the window is a little further open. I think it's just now because, again, Tua still has those injuries, back in the back pocket here. He has bulked up a little bit to try and, eliminate some of those. But this year, I think he's even slimmed back down a little bit. So look for that. See if he can stay healthy. And that's key. That's always been the key with him. And even the Miami Dolphins in general. Last year, when they went to the playoffs, they couldn't put up any points at all. It's because they were just riddled with the injuries all over the place. So the defense, you want to talk about another defense that was on the field all the time. That was one of the same things with that team. They were on the defensive side of the ball so many times.
They were
and
hurt
just
too
beating gas, and getting banged up. Absolutely. So and that'll kill you. But I think they have the right type of mix. It's a tough division. You got the Bills there too and everything. But I wouldn't be surprised with the way the NFL is now. I think they got to have a good shot. But you bring up
go ahead.
Troy Aikman real quick. And there's actually a thing somebody put out there, I think on even Twitter, like Ryan Fitzpatrick's stats next to Troy Aikman's. And they're like, Ryan Fitzpatrick is just as good, if not better. And Troy Aikman was pissed about that. And I think that's hilarious.
Because it's true. At the end of the day, see, my issue with Troy Aikman is when he was called upon to carry that team after the Barry Switzer era, after 1 year, and the team was no longer the elite team with a great offensive line, he failed miserably. He's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, along with Terry Bradshaw. But the difference is Terry Bradshaw knew he had a great defense. But the reason I put Terry Bradshaw head and shoulders above Troy Aikman is people forget that was the era where the quarterback called his own plays. So Terry Bradshaw was accused of being dumb, but you weren't dumb in the NFL in that era. You had to call your own plays. Now, I think their window is now because Tyreek Hill is 30. And once you hit a certain age, those wheels come off quickly. And he is what propels that offense in terms of speed, But it's funny. The problem, I was following the Dolphins all year because every week I was doing my rankings, and I hated it. I'm not going to do it this year because I don't just glance at them and throw crap in the air. I was breaking them down analytically. And I kept following. I go, this defense, these injuries are going to catch up to them when it counts. Yeah, my first big foray into going out, going out on an island on my own or whatever, was when I predicted that the Rams were going to get shut down by the Patriots. I go, those are some alligator arm receivers. I go, you can't be putting these ungodly numbers up and then expect to do that against the Patriots. You have to shift your game plan, and they did not. And sure enough, by the third and fourth quarter, Bruce Irvin and Torrey Hall, they had those alligators up. Ricky Waters' arms, those alligator arms, but my point though is I was following that defense, and they got to change their game. They got to have more of the rushing attack in there. And you're right, he's got concussion issues. So I think Mike McDaniel himself has to mature as a head coach and realize he can't keep running this run and gun style offense because it's just not going to work. Plus, he's in the AFC East. And what happens is, they had to go to Kansas City. They had to go to Buffalo, in the winter. And Tua shocked the world a couple years ago. People forget. He played the Bills very good in the winter up in Buffalo, even though they lost. It was right there to the final few minutes. So the weather's always a factor. So I don't think those are my reasons as to why he won't get to the big dance. But you're right. If the stars align, and a lot of ifs happen, but they're realistic ifs. They're ifs that can and should happen as a player and head coach mature. And I'm rooting for them. I love the underdog story. I'm not a Brian Flores fan because he played the race card. And once you go to the race card, it's like, I'm no longer in your corner. So Tua was brutally honest, which is what I am. So I applaud him for having no shame to say he was being shamed by a bad head coach. And with that, the final word on it.
I agree. Again, same thing. I have no problems with what he said. I believe it was the truth. And Brian Flores, again, time and time again, has shown that just plays the race card way too much and too proud in himself to admit he was wrong.
Right. And I guess I'll have this final word. I do believe in second chances. And Brian Flores has an opportunity for a second chance, meaning he's a defensive coordinator again. He runs a prolific style defense. If he can get the right players there, his blitzing style is a devastating defense. And it can also take a quarterback out, not purposely. It's just you keep hitting the quarterback that many times in the game, and they start to get happy feet. So he's got an opportunity. That team is built to win the Vikings right now. So he's got an opportunity to have his second chance. And I hope he can make the most out of it, because we all, as much as I don't like somebody, we all deserve second chances. And with that, my friends, I want to thank Jimmy. Hopefully you're going to see Jimmy and Joe on here a lot, even without me at times, as I'm trying to get points on the board back. It's our oldest show. This is episode 87. I want to get it. I can't wait to hit 100. So thank you for coming on and co-hosting it with me. And
it's been a pleasure.
He's the real deal when I go, Jimmy, I need you to research this topic.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. The reason you hear my voice a lot is I've just researched to the audience. I've researched these topics so in depth. I
Yeah.
like to throw those little nuanced points out there. But do not
Mhm.
forget, you
I
can
agree.
find this podcast Points on the Board along with previous podcasts. I got a great one on Caitlin Clark and homophily. You gotta hear it because you'll learn a lot about race relations and tribalism, as well as Jimmy's own podcast. In fact, Jimmy, give us a few seconds here. Tell us about what the Blindside Blitz is all about.
Blindside Bits. If you love football, come on, join us. We're the most interactive football talk show on the internet. We go live 9:00 Eastern every Tuesday night and enjoying the show. Come on in. The season's getting started. Can't wait. You can find us on all Grumblings media, on their Apple, Spotify, Pandora, all the good ones.
That's right. He just said it all. And with that, my friends, I am William Del Pilar with Jimmy McPhee. This is I'm looking for the exit. This is Points on the Board. And until next time, we bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.